The hardest part about putting this bike back together is 100% going to be this rear end. For some reason, man, Indians are very challenging when it comes to this kind of stuff. The wiring is in the way, but the frame, the mid frame has to sit on this dowel, and it sits between the kickstand and that dowel. And there's going to be a swing arm pivot that's going to sit behind all these cables that comes through here, and it's going to hold the mid frame, the left and the right side together. And then this ABS bracket, this is all of the ABS module. It is going to bolt into the inside of the left and the right part of the mid frame. Powder coat can make things a little challenging sometimes to get in, so let's put some white lithium grease just to give it a little bit of lubrication so we're not binding up as we're trying to turn this in. It's going in smooth. Before I will put this beautiful white frame back on this engine, I still needed to do some cleaning. I got this bike from auction. It was full of dirt, and yes, I did wash it, but that simply wasn't enough. So I just took a moment to just clean, and then I would get back to putting this frame back on the engine. With the engine being a little bit more clean, it ain't perfect. We still got some crust in some places, but it's a lot better than what we started. Now we can put that frame back on the engine. I'm gonna shoot a little bit of white lithium grease in here. See this bolt. These bikes, man, Indian hardware is known for just rusting. So we got the ECM bracket and we have the swing arm pivot bolt. The ECM sits in this little cradle. So what we're going to do now, try to feed this through and loosely get it mocked up. Man, that hardware looks gross. I would even consider just getting brand new hardware, because look at that, man. Ugh. Anyway, we got that in there, and it's gonna float freely. We're gonna get the top one in right here, just to loosely get it mocked up, and then we're gonna start trying to route these cables and the ECM. What I'm not really sure of right now is the best way to do this is, you know, I never rebuilt the Scout, so we got the swing arm pivot bolt in there. That's where it needs to be. We got the bottom piece in here that's holding, basically that's holding this piece on so it won't just like flop, right? So the question is, do I go ahead and put the ECM in, like bolt that up, try to move these cables out of the way? We got all of this stuff for the battery box. Then I still got to bolt this into the bottom down here. And so that's why I'm kind of confused. Oh wait, he left that plug in there. It's from the powder coat. That's the question I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, because that actually, that bolt right, that hole right there lines up with that. So I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to do this, because with the mid frame off, it gives me, or at least the left side, it gives me access to kind of go ahead and put all of this back together. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm actually gonna take this spacer, it sits behind here. I'm gonna take this one, this bolt, slide it through like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that hardware where it needs to be. So it gives us a little bit more stability, and if I have to come back out with this, I can, to allow this to pivot. This brake line has to sit above this line right here. This is the starter wire. I'm gonna sit these above this spacer like that. Got the starter solenoid, ground, positive, and this wire and loom with the fuses. So this is putting weight on that ABS module down there. So I'm just gonna pull this up like this. I'm gonna zip tie this out of the way to give me leverage so I can bolt this down to the mid frame. Let's do something. I actually messed this up. This brake line goes under here because this bolt goes through here and it pinches this with this bolt on there. So not that big of a deal. We're gonna take this out. That's why we have stability. But what I don't remember, I may just have to go look this up. I don't know if that starter wire goes down there too. I truly just do not remember. But what we can do, we can put the starter wire above it. We can let the brake line hang and just simply do that. Put that back like that. You know what? No, I think it's gonna go under, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because when it gets pinched, when this gets torqued down, it's gonna squeeze that line. So we're gonna take that all the way out. Ow, that hurt. Come on, take that out. Oh, spacer drop. And I'm gonna put that spacer back in there. It's so much easier when you have the other ones in there. Right, so when this gets torqued down like that, now nothing's gonna get pinched. And so I can come back now with this line right here. Go in there like this. Wire routing is not my strong suit. But anyway, brake line is supposed to go under. Starter wire goes on top. So this bolt right here, it is going to pinch this clip with this nut on the backside to hold this, but can't do that with the starter wire in the way. So I'm going to pull this back out again, put that on top. I think this will be the final time, I hope. If not, we're going to fix it because we learning together, right? It goes like that. So the starter wire gets routed up through there in front of the pivot shaft, and then the brake line, we can flip it like this, and now it can sit in that little recessed area. Goes like that. We can tighten it down. See, I couldn't do that with the starter wire in between the spacer and the clip. So I'm just gonna loosely tighten that down. We're not gonna torque anything down right now. We're actually not gonna torque the frame down until we get the front part on. So now that that's done, we can start bolting in the ABS bracket from the sides. It's kind of hard to get around a lot of the trial and error of trying to do this kind of stuff, because you're going to have some moments where you're gonna have to redo some stuff because you just don't know what you don't know. So now what I'm trying to do is figure out how this goes. Right now the starter wire is actually in my way. So maybe the starter wire actually goes behind the pivot shaft. I may need to go look at video to see, because the manual unfortunately did not do a lot in helping me figure out this routing this time around. So I may need to go do that, because right now this is in my way. But what I'll do for now, I'm just gonna route that out of the way. And then we'll go ahead and bolt this up. If I have to move it, we'll move it again. First time doing this. But the key right now is just get this stuff bolted in. I'll screw that one in the back. As I said before, one thing I don't mind doing, sometimes, depends on how I feel, is doing the same thing like this over and over again. Because it just teaches you how to do it. So now that I've done that, that starter wire can sit in front of that. Easy to move out of the way. But it teaches you how to do it. And then we can get a zip tie that to that little piece that's in there. change of plans. I was gonna go ahead and connect the battery box to this. The reason I didn't is because that battery box is very rigid, and trying to fit all of this stuff around that battery box, it was just gonna be an absolute nightmare. So I'm gonna put the other side of the mid frame on, and we're gonna try to line it up. It should go pretty easy, in theory, hopefully. But the dowel for the subframe pivot bolt or shaft goes into this slot. The top bolt goes into here, bottom bolt goes into here, and we just gotta line everything up, and the battery box is gonna bolt here. So now it's just a matter of hopefully routing these brake lines behind here too. I believe they have to go behind here. I was trying to cheat. That bracket that sits right here, you have to take that off because the brake lines, these things are very rigid. They don't budge. They just straight up are not gonna fit on this without taking that off. And also the evap line for the gas tank, it is going to zip tie to this. So now I gotta figure out how am I gonna get this in here. This, you pivot it and it's gonna get zip tied in like that. Not out of the woods just yet. Still got to get that swing arm pivot shaft down in there. We got to get it to line up inside of the frame right there, the mid frame. And we got to get these two bolts down here for the ABS bracket, and I still got to get the kickstand bolted back up right there. And there's one bolt under there that we have to deal with too. So it's coming together. Just once we do with the battery box, we'll have all this situated. It's two for the bracket. Should line up pretty easily. And it does. Let's move it back. Hopefully it lines up. It does. We can tighten that down later. I'm tightening these bolts down on this bracket for the ABS because it's pulling the mid frame and the shaft together. I'm not gonna torque it down, but that cleaned that up pretty easily. So now the question I still have is, does the starter solenoid wire go in front or behind that shaft? There's not much space behind it, but if I have to take it off, we'll take it off and reroute it, but I think we're gonna be fine. This is the ground. I'm gonna have to actually clean this ground off. That's not a good ground anymore. Found some damage. This is a, I guess it's a junction box, but we got some connectors right here. Luckily, this is detachable. You can see right there that I guess that's a ground. We're gonna fix that, but right now I'm gonna pull this out so we don't damage it further, and we're gonna move on. My guess is probably rear signal junction box or something. This could be left or right signal. No, this is too many wires for that. Way too many wires. I'll have to go look up the manual and see what it does, but either way, it's out and we will figure this out later. So wiring out of the way as much as I can, because now we have to go to the inside of this, install the bracket, and then get this freaking battery box installed. And once we get the battery box installed and all of this routing done, I imagine we can probably go with the swing arm. No, we need to do the rest of the frame first, and then we'll deal with the swing arm. But this zip tied off, the brake lines struggling to stay in their cradle because they're irritated right now. We're gonna put this in its place. This is gonna go somewhere right here for the gas tank, and this is gonna be our ground for the engine. Plot twist, I got my routing wrong once again. So this needs to go under here. One thing about a Polaris based Indian they are not gonna give you a lot of room to deal with the wiring. So the ground goes above the fuel vapor line. It sits like that. And then we're gonna bolt the battery box to the inside of this bracket. Brake lines come down, brake lines will go behind that bracket. Fuel vapor line goes in front of the pivot for the swing arm. I have it mounted between the mid frame and the ABS bracket, and it's gonna vent out to the ground. Yeah, having this kind of off to the side helped a lot. Hoping that, damn it, I was being extra. Right, that didn't work. I had to be nicer. So, going to try, I think I'm going to unhook this coolant line though out of this smorgasbord. Ow! Smorgasbord of, that's payback, right? Smorgasbord of wiring here. Move that out of the way like this. Try to sit. The bottom of the battery box, yeah, see a little tab, I broke that. That bottom of that tab needs to hook in with the coolant tank right there. This might have been easier with the frame not fully seated together, but that is how I got it out. So that is how this one's gonna go back in. The box should be able to go from the top down in. You can take it from the bottom up without having to come off the backside. If you have to ever service this area, it's just a pain with all of this here. So I hope these never have to come back out again. It is not fun trying to get these in. Mostly because you don't have much room and the thread is only so long. And it's hard to get that frame to bolt, to get that, you gotta get that bolt through the battery box, through the bracket, and into the frame. It can just be a bit of a challenge. But I got it. Took about 10 minutes of fiddling. All right, so I'm gonna go cry myself to sleep because I gotta take the ECM back out. So we got the starter solenoid right here, and we have the ground that goes, or the starter lead wire actually. The problem is there's not enough room to put the solenoid back on this piece to mount it, because this is supposed to be routed in here, and then it sits right there. So worst case, I gotta take the battery box out, but I'm gonna see if I can take the ECM out and try to cheat my way around it. Yeah, I told you this is gonna be the most annoying part of it because of the routing. I really just need enough room to scoop this wire in between the battery box and the ECM. Come on, ECM. George Hindi and Oscar Hedstrom just blessed me and said, don't make that mistake again. All right, so the starter solenoid is where it needs to be. And then I realized the coolant reservoir, or the coolant fill for the reservoir, needed to be in the back as well. It was previously up here. Starter solenoid wire goes there, coolant goes there, and then it literally just lifts on top and clips into there with this on there first. Whew. Make my life a little bit easier. I am going to take this off like that. take this, sit it on it like that, and then force this on here. So now we can put that back on there. It should go on and come off like it's supposed to. All right, swing arm pivot shaft. This is a ABS line. I had the starter lead wire run in front of this. Starter lead wire is right here, runs up through behind the mid frame, and I had it in front of the swing arm pivot shaft. I rerouted it behind it. Got some access to pull it through here, and it gave me the extra little bit to get this on and off easily. Again, learning the routing. So we got our ground. Ground's gonna go like that to the chassis, and we're gonna ground it off like that for the battery. But we need to rough this up and get this to a shiny surface so we can have a better ground, because the powder coat is gonna interfere with that. Alright, we're gonna hit this with some dielectric grease. Gonna help keep the moisture out. Also, it's gonna help with corrosion. You might be asking also, why didn't I just tell my guy to not powder coat over that? It's easier for them to just do the whole thing versus trying to mask every single thing off. And it's nothing for me to, you know, redo this and make sure I got a solid ground. And also you get a chance to see it too. All right. It's a solid ground, so if we hook that battery back up here, we're gonna get some power. I'm not a huge fan of that exposed copper. Granted, it was like that before I started, but we're just gonna put some tape on it. Just to insulate it just a little bit. Takes all of 1 minute to do this to make sure that we don't have anything touching that's not supposed to touch, right? So I had on my hand and we're done. A little bit of tape on this one as well, because I saw some exposed copper. Ow. I think we are pretty much done under here. I can go ahead and clip this back in, but I gotta connect the battery completely back first. Like I said, I may go ahead and do that to charge the battery, but put that over the positive. Gotta deal with this kickstand. Look at that, beautiful. So goes like that, kickstand, threads through the kickstand. There's one bolt right here that also goes through the bottom of the kickstand, and it has some Loctite on it, so I took off the little bit of dried up Loctite that was on there, put a little bit of red, nothing crazy. Red is really hard to get off. And so now I'm gonna come up under here, slot this through right there, and then we'll tighten them down. We can torque the bottom one, I believe, just not the top one just yet. But we are on our way to making this all work. All right, I went ahead and connected the battery. And when it's time to deal with fuel stuffs, I'll disconnect it. So this should slide in. There we go. And if you're wondering, at this current time, I do still have room to put this back because the subframe is not bolted up, and I can, crap, I dropped it. I can get some double-sided tape and stick it to the bottom of this. So we'll handle that later, but now I'm gonna move to the wiring up here, get the airbox put on, then we can put the top part of the frame on and then put the front part on. Start torquing stuff down, man. It's looking good. Got the battery tender hooked up, grounded. Got a green light, so that lets me know that the battery is charged and we got a good ground. All right. Now we got to put the airbox on before we put the top part of the frame. Took a little breaky break. Had to feed my tummy. So we're gonna put this on and put that on. It is about to rain, which means I get a little bit of relief out here. One day I'll get me a AC unit out here. So we're gonna fold this forward. Display connector. All this out the way. Whoopsie. Right. Right there. This is so much easier when you don't have the airbox on. I mean, the frame. I'm not sure what this is called, but I wrote it down as frame sticky part. Maybe it does something with the tank, or maybe it just keeps this from, no, it's nothing to do with the tank. It just keeps this from rubbing. The tank bushings go right there. So I forgot to put it on. I just took the old one off. I'm gonna put that one back on. So now, I guess that keeps it from digging in there. I don't know. Then that's gonna go in there like that. I'm gonna take a zip tie, go over just like this. This one's giving me a bit of a challenge. All right, this is the gasket that goes on the airbox. Honestly, this whole thing may have to come back off. Because truthfully, the only way for you to really get, like to tighten this thing up, I think maybe these have to be off. I don't remember. It's a tight fit. So if I have to, that's cool. But we're doing this again so we can torque the frame in sequence. This is where it's gonna get even more irritating. I know it's coming because this frame about destroyed my knee last time. I gotta get this dial on here before I get everything else lined up. This thing is crusty, bro. I might need to sand this thing down if I put it in here. There we go. I think that's good enough. Here's to hoping I don't tear my freaking legs up this time, because this frame is not light. This thing weighs probably a good, I don't know, 20 pounds. It may not weigh that much. She got some weight on it though. So this one with the spacer goes on the right side of the bike, and the one without the spacer with the dial goes on the left. So just gotta line this up. I could probably use some help with this, but it'll be alright. Spacer's gonna go here. I can get it in there. Slight side quest, this dial right here doesn't want to line up fully. I'm gonna take this hammer and try to knock this frame. There we go. Spacer. I think I scratched the engine up a little bit. That's no good. Oh crap. Scratched the engine up. I'll clean it. Darn it. Still gotta get the radiator in. Yay me. Okay. Oh yeah, so that needs to go in here first. Oops. We'll fix it. Yeah. Hacks, baby. Hacks. So that gasket is gonna go in here first, or that seal, then it's gonna mount up to here. Then I'll be able to slide everything through here, torque the rear all the way forward, then probably take this back off, or at least loosen it up so I can get the radiator in and get the horn bracket and all that stuff buttoned up. I'm actually gonna have to go back and clean a little bit of this because powder coat is in some areas and it's not supposed to be. Alright, I'm going to take that, yeah, it goes like this. I would imagine this is not going to go easy. It's Airbox. Not without a fight anyway. Nope, it is not. Not without a fight. I'm going to tighten this up so when I lift this up, it doesn't immediately want to drop and try to kill me. I'm not torquing it, just tightening it down. So, yeah, so it's less likely to fall now. I'll come down here and do a last little snug. Alright, so my plan right now, because this thing is really hard, this little seal gasket is really hard to try to get in here. I took it off of the frame and I put it on the Airbox. And now I'm trying to get it inside of the frame because I can apply pressure to the frame. My hope is I can just walk this gasket in from the top. So much easier. Trying to put this piece back on with it already being on here and trying to walk it on here, you don't have much give here. So what I did, took this off, put it on the Airbox first, put the bottom in first, and then I just took a screwdriver and walked it around the top since I had more access to that. First try, got it. Indian decided to make this bolt a 1/4 of an inch and not like a 6 or 7 millimeter. Again, this may have to come off because I got to get to the radiator fill, but hey, if I do, that's cool. At least we know. Currently my bolt holes are not lining up, so I'm going to see if I can take a mallet to this and see if we can get it to go where we want it to. No, that ain't going nowhere. I'm going to loosen these up in the back. So this piece can slide a little bit. Took a mallet. So close. I think we got it. Had to lift up on this frame to take some weight off of it. I'm playing tug of war with it right now because the engine has moved a little bit, and so it's just, there we go. We gonna get it. The other one should go a lot easier. Yeah. There we go. You know what it could have been too? Some of that powder. But nonetheless, we got it. That's all that matters. We're gonna get these last 2 bolts in. One here and one on the other side. And I think we can start torquing down the frame. Mid-frame, backbone, mainframe. Everything's connected. Now I have to go back all the way to the beginning down here, and torque everything down. I mean, I could have torqued that down in the beginning, but torque the kickstand part of this down, everything. And then we can take it back off and do the radiator. We got the service manual here, and it's gonna give us the exact sequence. That's the frame. Right here we can see what part of the frame needs to be torqued first and what part needs to be torqued last, and their respective numbers. First is going to be this lower, 51 foot-pounds. All right. This one requires something to be on the other end to hold it, so I lowered the jack so I can use the floor as leverage. As I'm torquing, it's gonna push against that and make this torquing easier. Also, 51 foot-pounds. There it is. It's locked against the floor. Torqued. Move this off. Ooh. Go. Swing arm pivot shaft. Right here. It's supposed to be 5 foot-pounds just so it can contact from here to the other side. Screw it clockwise. Go locking in. I'm just gonna go. It's supposed to be 5 foot-pounds. I think that's good. This kickstand is not a part of the frame assembly. I just know that I didn't do it. So I got this set to 19 foot-pounds, and I got a bunch of extensions on here, but we'll be fine. Just a little bit. Okay. Now I need to get under here and do the one that I put the Loctite on. See, I had to go up with the bike a little bit. All right, it says it's torqued. So apparently, trying to find the torque value for these, they'll tell you everything about the ABS module, service limit and everything, but they won't tell you how to torque this freaking bracket down. So I'll find the torque value for it later. Oof. Right now, just gonna snug it as good as we can, and more than likely, that's gonna be torqued anyway. You dig? In the frame torquing sequence, this is number 5, and this will be number 6. So unfortunately, I don't have my beautiful 18. Still don't know where it is, so I got to use this 18 wrench, I guess. Yeah, to torque this down. Hopefully, it doesn't give me too much trouble. But it's 51 foot-pounds. I'm gonna lift the engine up. Yep, there we go. We're lifting it. All right, here we go. We'll do the same thing here. Torque. This is going to be 7 and 8, 9 and 10. Each are going to be torqued down to 35 foot-pounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is number 11. For some reason, there is no torque listed for this one, so we're just going to snug it. Good enough. And these two are 13 and 14, and these are going to be torqued down to 19 foot-pounds. Nope, I got it backwards. The other two that I thought were the final ones, they actually were supposed to go first. It doesn't really matter at this point, I don't think. But you can see there is no torque value for those. I actually meant there's no torque value for these two, but these are supposed to be torqued to 19. Guaranteed they're over torqued. Yeah, they're already torqued. Couple of ergodugs and we already had it. I know I torqued these down the last time I did this, but what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna snug them. Cause like I said, you can kind of feel when you hit certain torque ranges. Like I already had this torque, just give it a little snug. Don't go too crazy with it. So I'm gonna do the same thing to this. I can probably look at what I did before and probably figure this out, but it ain't gonna matter right now. Give it a good snug. Man, crazy, man. Yeah. All right, it's done. All right, before I sweat my face off, I got to give a shout out to my patrons. Each active patron gets a spot on my wall. We built a nice little community over there. We talk pretty much daily, in this case, about Scout. They've been helping me figure out some color stuff, so if you're interested in that, I'll leave a comment down below. That's my plug. Let's get back to the bike. Frame's on, it's torqued down. It's probably, again, it's gonna have to come back off so we can get the radiator on. That's gonna happen next. There's a bracket, there's a swing arm, and also we're gonna put the rear wheel on as well. Whew, that's a lot. But I think it looks absolutely amazing. I'm gonna have to go in here with some acetone, clean off this area so I can seat my bearing, and also under there. But let me know what y'all think about the white frame on the black engine, or gray, dark gray, whatever that is. I think it looks great. It's definitely something different from all the other Scouts out there. Next episode is gonna show up here at some point when it's ready. If not, the playlist will be right there. Hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. Catch you next one. Peace.